25 common misconceptions about the United States that simply aren't true. This is gonna be very interesting. I'm sure I have so many misconceptions and I'm about to have my mind blown. Let's go!
The United States often draws a lot of flack from the rest of the world for everything. From its foreign policy to the way it runs its domestic affairs. In fact, it seems like there are few things that can divide the world more evenly and more strongly than asking people what their opinion is of the United States. Everyone has an opinion. Even in the same city, you'll meet people who fall on the extreme sides of the spectrum. But what is it exactly that causes America to be so messed up? Even America's own politicians can't seem to stop talking about how messed up things are. Well, today we're going to take
every politician in the world.
Are things really as bad as everyone seems
about
to
their
think they are?
country?
I'm Mike with This 25, and these are 25 common misconceptions about the United States that simply aren't true. And as a very important note, this list was produced by both a United States citizen and 2 European citizens that relocated to the United States. It's written to be as fair as possible. No, I'm not 2 Europeans. Or am I?
No, you're not.
All right, let's begin with a really common thought.
What?
Americans are ignorant about the world. Americans are held to an unrealistic standard.
Bro, yeah, there are I think it stopped being funny after a while, no? There was this guy, I don't remember his name, I think it was Lingualizer, that was making those videos on Omigo, making fun of all the kids, American kids that didn't know about geography. It was fun at first, after a while you got like, oh, why? Why do you have to persist?
Since the rest of the world watch our movies and listen to our music, they know a lot about our country. But let's be honest, they never studied it. People actually complain that Americans don't even know that Czechoslovakia doesn't exist anymore. But neither does half the United Kingdom, and they're on the same continent. It turns out that all of us are...
Bro, I think if a British person don't know about the Czechoslovakia don't exist anymore, I don't know. I mean, he must be the stupidest person in the country. I mean, everyone knows that Czechoslovakia doesn't exist
pretty
anymore.
bad at geography.
I mean, I can understand an Asian, maybe an Asian or an African person that doesn't know this kind of facts, but I'm not saying every European knows about Europe. To some extent, of course,
You'd think America would be better at it. However, considering another common thought is that America spends its days spying on everyone. And that's true. But who doesn't? Germany, France, Switzerland, Japan, Iceland, and all the rest of us spy on each other and ourselves. Moving on, America has been called racist. Please don't take this the wrong way. Racism,
unfortunately, is a problem that is worldwide. Even here in Italy, I thought people wouldn't be so racist, But if you're a foreigner, then you definitely will experience it to some extent. So, unfortunately, even me, as a white person, you would imagine you would never suffer racism. But when I travel to Asia, yeah, many people look at me didn't look at me very well and will say stupid shit in my face, thinking I won't understand. So it's a worldwide phenomenon. Unfortunately, yeah, we're trying the best to fight it, but it's still a thing that still exists. But there was a quote, I don't remember who said that. Oh my god, that you will cure. Now that was an Italian quote that said you will cure fascism by reading, and you will cure racism by traveling. That was something that stuck in my head. It was like, wow, mind blown quote, mind blown phrase. So yeah, I think that is true, I think it's very true, but hopefully someday things will be better. Still, so much better than what it was a century ago, so we're making progress.
racism definitely exists, and it makes the news. But you know what else? America also has a vicious media, and all of the world watches it, sometimes more than their own media. So when something super bad happens in other countries, it might not even make the back page. Next, it's a common misconception that
this guy is getting so pissed about every person that took a shot to Americans. What the Come on, bro, don't worry. We don't hate America. We're just like that, you know, especially Europeans. We always badmouth everything there is to be badmouthing. So don't you worry. We still love America. We still love everyone. We just like to complain a lot.
Americans don't use public transport. While it's true that we use cars a lot, many regions in America have great public transport. Or at least just as good as Europe. Besides, what good is a train if nobody can afford it? I'm looking at you, UK. Moving on. America does / is fill in the blank. America is far from being a unified entity. Each state has its own laws, cultures, and quirks. Some states have the death penalty. Some don't. Some have strict gun laws, and some don't. Some have free college. Some don't. Some have tax, and yeah, some don't. So just like you can't say Europe is...
We should definitely check out some videos to learn about each individual state more into detail, because yeah, there's lots of differences between one state and the other.
So-and-so, you can't say the same about the US. As an additional note, the states are far more independent than many of us realize. In fact, every state even has its own military, known as the Guard. Furthermore, some states pass legislation that directly contradicts the federal government. This is because in the US, the federal government is not the highest authority, the states are.
I didn't
To
know
further
that.
establish the fact that America isn't a single entity, many believe that Americans only speak one language. But that's no different from the rest of the world.
There's no, I remember watching this before, there's no official language in America, and half of the, no, not half of the people, but I think like 25 to 30% are speaking Spanish, right? Their native language is Spanish, I guess.
Have you ever been to France? Or the UK? Or Italy? Or how about China? Most of them only speak one language too. That being said, over 20% of the US is bilingual. Now, let's talk about the military, because people outside the US will preach that America's military does, again, fill in the blank. Nobody is naive enough to think that the US doesn't have selfish interests in mind when it invades a country. There isn't a nation on earth that would do that selflessly. But whenever the bad goes down, it's just as common for other countries to complain that America should do something. On a more or less lighter note, Americans are fat. You ever been to the UK lately?
Yeah, I've been to the UK, yes, I can attest that. But actually, when I went to London, you wouldn't see many overweight people. But when I stayed with my friend in Newcastle, that is like in the northern part of the UK, next to Scotland, yeah, many people were they like to eat, let's say it that way, because I don't want to be doing body shaming. And I was overweight too until quite some time ago. When I went there, I was like maybe 90 kilograms. Now I'm like 77. Oh fuck, I forgot you used the pounds. I was like maybe 160, 170 pounds. I don't want to say something stupid. I think it's 180, 170 pounds. Yes. Probably yes. Fuck! I need to learn the other system that is not the matrix system. Fuck.
There are even scandals because obese patients are getting turned down for surgery. Yes, America does have an obesity problem. But not all citizens are involved in it. I am. A big part of the United States is fairly health conscious and is consistently working to help the overweight population better their lives. Thanks, healthy people. And while we aren't perfect, many complain that America is worse than other developed nations in, well, everything. There are many statistics, child mortality, literacy, etc.
Actually, I read an article before. I don't know if this is true, so if you're watching this and you're in America, you can help me out with this. The problem with obesity in America is that in some places they lack the primary resources when it comes to food. Like there will be far more fast foods than there are supermarkets that will provide you vegetables, fruit, and all kinds of stuff like that. At least in the southern region of the United States. Let me know if that's true or if it was just made up article that I read.
Where the US falls behind countries like Norway and Iceland. But those statistics are based on averages. In Norway, most of the 5 million inhabitants are rich, white, and Norwegian. If you took a similar sample of rich, white Americans in the US, you would find that the statistics are almost exactly the same. The fact is that the US is hugely diverse, and the American experience is completely different with and without money. Translation?
Yeah, translation, you're telling that what he's saying sounds pretty racist, though. Or it's just my. I mean, he's saying about Norwegians that are rich because they're white and Norwegians, and he said that most white people in America they're richer than all the other ethnicities. So that sounds pretty racist, but it's just my imagination. I don't mean to offend or anything. That's just what I'm getting. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Problem isn't healthcare or education, it's economic inequality, almost exclusively. And speaking of inequality, many make the simple but powerful assumption that America just isn't safe. This is usually what foreign citizens say until they actually come here. By this same logic, Paris, Brussels, London, Madrid, and almost every other city in Europe is unsafe as well. Yes, there are guns.
But it's different. I guess in the homicide rate in the US, I mean, it's a fact. You can just look it up. It's way higher. Here in Europe, what you risk more than everything would be like to get robbed. In America, you might. It's very difficult. If you're just visiting, probably nothing will happen to you. But yeah, I would say it's more dangerous. But again, I've never been to the US, so I'm just stating facts that I read on the internet. So correct me if I'm wrong, as always. I try to be as neutral as I can.
But most Americans have never seen or heard a gun being fired. In fact, most Swiss citizens are much more familiar with gunfire than us Americans. All this being said so far, people still expect all Americans to relish in a life of our stereotypes. Guns, fast food, and freedom! What I'm saying is, a lot of the world looks at America as overly patriotic. But here's an honest question. Have you ever met a Russian, Australian, a proud member of the UK? There's no shame in having pride in your country. Us Americans are definitely patriotic. But so is the rest of the world. As they should be. It's not a crime to be proud of where you came from. But that doesn't stop others from thinking we only complain and boast about America whenever we travel abroad. This is largely anecdotal. In America, Americans like to complain just like the rest of us. Only a few of them ever even leave the country, so you're meeting an unrepresentative sample. But in their defense, many times, they're right. Yes, this can hit hard in the pride spot, but maybe Europeans could stand to smile a bit more, right? No? Okay, fine. Back to the apathetic, leave me alone face. By the way, that part was written for our European representative. By our European representative. I love all of you. Anyways, statistics viewed by outsiders show that the US is lagging behind. Similar to topics we've already discussed, there's another factor that we have to take into account. Reporting. Every nation reports its own statistics. This means that making statistical comparisons between two developed nations, like the US and the UK, is an exercise in futility. The data is just too close and won't reveal much except that the US counts people one way and the US counts them another. That still doesn't make this misconception true. Americans are fake. Here's the thing. In Europe, citizens are almost proud of the fact that they're really standoffish. But once you get to know them, they're your friend for life. Well, here's a newsflash. Once you get to know an American, they'll also be your friend for life. The thing is, though, they don't use this as an excuse to be a jerk in the beginning. This list sounds great coming from an American. I was totally the one who should have read this one, but I digress. On a totally different but very popular misconception, Americans are the only ones who call football soccer. Actually, a lot of the world calls it soccer. Even parts of Ireland still call it soccer.
I want to know why, that the two sports were called football, both the soccer football that we have that is more common in Europe and American football. I want to know why they were picked the same name. I don't understand this. It caused a lot of confusion. I don't know, maybe they expected when they create those two games that they wouldn't be so successful. I don't know, whatever. I don't know even which one was created first. Actually, I think that Australian football was created first, then European football, and then American football. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Oh, what do I mean by still? I'm glad you asked. It was actually the British who coined the term soccer.
Oh,
the word
really?
soccer is an abbreviation of association and first appeared in universities in the
It's okay, me being Italian, I don't have this problem. We call football calcio. That means calcio is like kick with your foot. So we don't have that problem. But most other countries, they call it football or football. So that problem, whatever. I never made any confusion with that.
1880s, sometime using the variant spelled soccer with a K. The word is sometimes credited to Charles Redford Brown, an Oxford University student said to have been fond of shortened forms such as brekkers for breakfast and rugger for rugby football. Britain actually started using the word football in the late 20th century, possibly because people incorrectly saw it as an Americanism. This next one, Tristan couldn't believe. Could you not?
No.
I'm learning something. To our American viewers, did you know that people in Europe make fun of you for using air conditioning? Why do they need it? Why don't they just leave the window open? Mosquitoes?
Yes, but this one you already answered me in the comment section. It was like I predicted that the weather is way more humid in the US, so you definitely need it. I mean, having traveled to Asia, I know that you cannot live in a humid and really hot place without an aircon. Here in Europe, we don't get that kind of heat.
At least in Florida. But here's why they might be joining us soon. During the 2003 European heatwave, 70,000 people died. This was in
that year takes me back. I was in Sicily with a friend of mine. I was a teenager back then. I still remember there was a day that the peak heat was like 52 degrees. Wait, let me search it in Fahrenheit because I keep telling this stuff like you will be understanding me. Like I wouldn't if I talk in Celsius to Fahrenheit. Okay, let me check to be precise. Okay. So the weather was 125 degrees Fahrenheit. That was insane. I remember I stayed in the house the whole day because it was too hot. But it was one of those older houses because Sicily, in some places, as you may imagine it from the movies, you know, there's like pretty much nothing and people won't be able to speak it. Yeah, that's something too. That if you go to the city, everyone will be speaking perfect and everything, but other people wouldn't even be able to speak Italian. They would talk to me in Sicilian. I was like, what? I come from the north, so I don't know even a word in Sicilian. And most people will be talking to me in Sicilian. I was like, oh my God, that's fucked up. But yeah, anyway, I was talking about that. This 125 degrees Fahrenheit. I was in the house and I needed to call my parents. I had to go out always to because there was no reception inside the house. I went out, I made the phone call. After 2 minutes, I had to hang up because the phone was burning through my ear. That was crazy, and I even got a headache. 2 minutes out under the sun. That was insane. Oh my God. I still remember it. That year was crazy. That's crazy. But anyway, let's go back to the video.
Large part due to the fact that European homes and buildings are not typically equipped with air conditioning. While they laugh at the Americans for this, hotter summers are going to force them to take appropriate measures, especially since children and the elderly are very susceptible. Again, I stand by mosquitoes. I'm not opening my window in the summer. Winter, absolutely, open windows. Moving into the top 9.
I hate mosquitoes too.
The weird number. Top 9. Many parts of the world accuse the United States of accounting for 25% of the world's carbon emissions. Not so nice. But it also accounts for 25% of the world's economic activity. The truth is that several nations, including countries like Canada, have higher per capita emissions than the US. Next, let's talk about how the world thinks Americans are ruining English. Actually, both British English and American English have diverged from a common 16th century ancestral standard, And in some ways, American English is closer to the original than British English.
Really?
For example,
I didn't
American
know that.
English has, for the most part, retained the language's rotosity, pronunciation of the R in words like hard, while British has, for the most part, dropped it. Furthermore, this shift in British English happened around the time of the American Revolution when wealthier Londoners wanted to distinguish themselves from the lower classes. This is only one example, but it goes to show that British English is not an unchanging standard any more than American English. On a totally different note, did you know that Americans don't all live in the suburbs? Nope, not true. The fact is that in America, you have plenty of people that live in cities like New York, Washington, D.C., San Francisco, Chicago, Boston, and the list goes on. In fact, several regions of the United States are very European, like the Northeast Corridor, for example. The difference between the US and Europe is that if you want to live in the suburbs in the US, you can, but you don't have to. Now, this next one is just offensive. Americans are all dumb rednecks. While there are certainly Americans who fit this stereotype, the vast majority don't. Most Americans live in cities near the coasts. Most of them are educated, and most of them are not very different from Europeans in any significant way. Every country has a less educated populace that they themselves make fun of.
That's what I was saying about the Sicilian people. I still love them, kinda, whatever. Sorry, I don't want to be racist.
Even sophisticated nations like Sweden and Switzerland. Fair warning, the last 5 on our list get a bit dark and crazy, starting with the idea that America is imperialistic. In many parts of Europe, the United States is seen as an aggressive imperial power, even more so than Russia and China. This is largely because our military presence both in Europe and everywhere else. But in our strong defense, Americans never forced you to watch our movies, quarter our soldiers, obey our laws, or get permission to leave your own countries. It was the Russians that did that, and much, much more. Food for thought, after World War II, the Americans liberated and left. The Russians liberated and stayed.
Yeah, with the Marshall
All right,
Plan and all
number
that.
4 is sure to be a shocker to a lot of foreigners. Americans don't actually all walk around with guns. It's just not true. Except for a few places, the only people you'll ever see carrying guns in America are the police. In fact, you'll see more people walking around with guns in Switzerland than you ever would in America. Okay. We admit that, like most stereotypes, there is some truth to this next one, but it's been wildly blown out of proportion. Americans are all crazy Christian right-wingers. There's something so right about saying it with that accent. Yes, there
It's okay. There are many, especially the Mormons, right? I mean, it's okay. There's always people that really believes that much in religion that they want everyone else around them to believe in it. I do have uncles that they change so many religious beliefs throughout their life. Now they are Jehovah's Witnesses. And before they were, they embraced the Mormon religion, then the born again Christian, then the Baptist. They change pretty much everything. So yeah, I mean, and they will go door to door to try to get more people in their congregation, if we can call it that way. So it's okay. Most people, when they start to believe in something so deeply, they will want other people to follow them. So it's pretty normal everywhere in the world, I would say. I mean, as long as they do it in a civil and educated way, it's fine, as long as they don't hurt anyone.
There are a lot of Christians in America, and while some of them are crazy right-wingers, most of them aren't. In fact, if you ever get a chance to go and stay with one of those crazy Christian families, you'll see that most of them are just genuinely sweet people that go to church on Sundays. This next one sounds like a legit stand-up joke. If you get injured and can't pay for it, you'll just die in the street. Yeah, Many people in Europe think this is what happens in America. As with most things that concern America,
you just wrong. Get in debt after the
You can't be denied emergency medical care in the U.S. That would go against the Hippocratic Oath. The difference is that you get a bill in the mail a few months later. Of course, debt is another issue, but let's get into that right now. Americans are all in debt. Actually, European citizens carry more debt than Americans. The
I think, I mean, what is said about that? I mean, it's something that being so stupid when I was younger, I traveled to Vietnam and I didn't purchase an insurance, and my European insurance didn't work. So when I was in the hospital, I had to pay a lot of money. It was about $3,000 or something like that. And after that, I always travel with an insurance. So if you're smart, you should be considering that. I mean, I learned from an empirical point, but still. And this one that is saying, I think it's mostly for people that received a higher education, right? Because the schools in the colleges and universities in America are the best in the world, so you gotta pay lots of money for it. While the Europeans one, yes, they're very cheap, so people won't get into that with those. I think the most expensive one in Italy is Bocconi. Costs like 7 or 8 thousand euros a year. That's pretty much the same as dollars, euro, their currency. And so yeah, it's very difficult to be getting in debt like that. But let's face it, you will have a better career for sure if you have an American based if you get your education in America. That's what I think. I'm not sure. I didn't even finish high school, so I don't know.
average household debt in the US, OECD, is 113% of the household's income. In the UK, it's 156%. In Sweden, 173%. And in Denmark, it's a whopping 305%. So, what are some misconceptions?
No, it's different, it's different because the Scandinavian countries, they have a different political system. Like they get everything free, healthcare, they get education, they get everything. So even if they are in debt, they can still lead a very good life, I would say,
About the US that you'd like cleared up? Or do you live in America and want to put a stereotype to rest? Let us know in the comments below.
That was beautiful.
Or
That
tweet
was
your answer to
beautiful.
us at list 25. And as an American, I apologize for everything going on right now. Don't worry, 2020 is just around the corner.
Ah, okay.
Oh.
Enjoying our
2020 is just around the corner. What do you mean? Oh, that was that was before COVID, right? I don't know. I guess 4 years ago. Anyway, I apologize if I said something bad about the guy presenting the show. I don't know. I just wanted to share my opinion on some matters. Of course, many of the times my opinion will be wrong, so I'm always open for some constructive criticism. Hope you've enjoyed the video, guys. If you have any more recommendations, I really want to learn more about the US, so please fire or shoot your recommendations in the comment section so I can check it out very soon. See you.